Welcome everyone back to my train room. Thank you so much for joining me, and if this is your first time here, do consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell to stay up to date with all of the videos. I do try to keep a semi-weekly schedule, even if this video is a couple days late, but we do try to drop a new video each and every day. We do some layout tours. I'm going to start visiting other people's layouts. We do railroad museums, got a fun one of those coming up for you guys really soon, and all kinds of stuff. So if you are enjoying this, do consider hitting subscribe and also the like button. Basically, if you don't know how YouTube works, it's all an algorithm, and those two things help that algorithm out distinctly. Now, we are going to talk today a little bit about subscriber goals and things like that, because I have been kind of touting this 100 subscriber special that I had planned, and unfortunately, there's a few things that got in the way, and something that's going to be a big change and modification to our schedule getting into this. Now, to start off, I'm going to reschedule the 100 subscriber special out to 1,000. The main reason that I'm going to do that, as we'll talk about here in a few moments, there are still some unfortunate modifications that I need to do to the track to make this happen. Now, if this is your first time here, this is my Tyco layout. This layout is one that I've had for basically all my life. I mean, my parents actually acquired this about 2 years before I was even born. They bought this in Columbus, Ohio for 10 whole dollars, and I've come to realize just how unique this actually is over time. There are tons of these out there, but I've never seen one exactly like this. And this particular layout was basically found in someone's basement. It was in a garage sale. It apparently was at some point up in a toy store or hobby store or something to basically advertise Tyco trains. And obviously, as you can tell from my layout, I'm not running a huge amount of Tyco stuff, but I do enjoy the layout very much. Now, because this layout is well more than 50 years old, probably even older than that in some of my findings, I've never been able to find an exact date, but it is an exceptionally old layout. There are some unfortunate weak spots. Some of the plastics and landscapes and things like that have, I guess, shrunk and sagged and things like that. So I've been doing a lot of work to rewire this, to re-landscape it, and to basically turn this into something that will represent modern model railroading and everything like that. You'll see here that I'm having a few issues with runaway trains and runaway cars, and some of that is that sagging and things that I'm trying to kind of resolve here. So this is just basically going to be an update, as well as a few things that I've found that are really, really cool here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a major update for you guys on this. A lot of you guys have seen a lot of the work going into this, but I have a lot getting ready to go into the big layout, which this is going to integrate with. So we're getting ready to do a lot of the landscape work and a lot of the major modifications to this, starting next week with the roads. So let's talk about the roads really quickly. So one of the things that is next on the list over here, as far as just aesthetics, are the roads. Now, there is something very special that comes with one of those, and we will discuss that when it comes there, but I actually have wanted to try this out for quite a bit of time. I saw an interesting tutorial online where somebody just used some gray pre-mixed grout to achieve a really interesting look. So I'm going to test it out on this cardboard, see how it looks, and we'll decide if this is the methodology that I want to use going forward on the track. So we're going to use some thick foam tape. This doesn't have to be too terribly thick. In fact, you don't want it terribly thick. This is, what, 16-inch, if even that? I don't know, I have no idea how thick that is, but just thick double-sided foam tape. And I'm going to make a straight line. And because this is a test, I'm not really worried about precision. Okay. There's one side. There's another side. Obviously, when it comes to the final deal on the track, I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to make sure everything's good, but for right now, this is just a test bed. In fact, I can already feel that while this is one of the cheapest and least sticky tapes that I could find, it's going to stick pretty well to this cardboard, and I'm going to regret the results of this. But let's see how the road does. Less how the cardboard holds up. I was actually going to do this on a piece of like extra plexi that I have laying around, but I have a plan for that plexi. and I don't want to mess it up. So we're just going to pull our grout over here. And it is just pre-mixed, ordinary, everyday grout. And I'm just going to smear it in here and see how it do. Okay. I have no idea how this is going to look. I have an idea how I want it to look. I just don't know if it's actually going to achieve that look or not. It's already kind of, on this surface, proving a bit problematic. But, you know, it's cardboard, though that styrene is going to be a little bit different. So I might have to, well, actually, it's actually going down here pretty well now. It's not thinning out as well as I had hoped. Now, I do have a wider straight edge that I'm going to use here in a moment, but for now, I just want to get this down and see how it looks. Actually, not going to lie, just initial impressions here, I actually kind of do like this. You can use anything as a straight edge. I'm just going to use this thing just because I have it here. And my other... You'd obviously want to get a wider one of these spackle spreaders. But, yeah, I don't know where mine is. It's I was using it on another project in the garage, and it's probably in with my Bondo or something at the moment. So I'm going to just see if I can recycle that. There we go. Actually... Not gonna lie. Let's do one more round real quick. And then we'll see how that looks. I'm actually fairly impressed. Now remember, your roads are, you know, the asphalt on roads is just made up of little tiny rocks. Like, it's nothing terribly special. And grout is made up of little tiny rocks. So in theory, this should look pretty good. Like, is it gonna be perfect? Probably not, but you know, it's gonna be close enough. You know, obviously, probably would be preferable to do this method. But it seems to be leaving lines, so I'm just going to continue doing it this way. And you know what? Obviously, I'd want a smoother edge. There's some rough parts to this edge, but as a test bed, it doesn't look half bad. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and, just for the sake of all things, kind of separate the top and the bottom here. And everything between these two lines will be what we actually consider the road. Okay? So, in theory, we would let this dry. I'm just going to pull this up now. It shouldn't be too... Ooh. Yeah, see. Told you the cardboard wasn't going to work out well. But my plexi is kind of called for at the moment, so... My plexi and my coroplast... Oh, no. Alright. Okay. Well, I did kind of mess up this side, but that's obviously not going to be a problem on our styrene. But if you look at this side, which came off really nicely, we're not going to have that problem anyway on the plastic. So if we just pay close attention to this, I actually think that's going to work out pretty well. I'm going to let this dry, see how it looks. But then in theory, we would just paint some lines on it. And even some of these, you know, ridges and stuff in the road. It's going to be an old road. So, yeah, I think that's going to work really, really, really well. I'm shocked. So, rather than spending a lot of money on some, you know, expensive plasters and whatnot, like a $10 or so solution. So, yeah. We're going to start on that here shortly. I'm going to have to obviously get a little bit more of this, mask it off carefully, and make sure that whatever I use on the I don't know what it is over there, the whatever plastic that is. Make sure this doesn't stick too badly, but I think all in all, I think this is going to work. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments, but I'm pretty happy. So more or less you can kind of see how the roads are going to go, and I'm going to keep the major road layout here. The only difference being I need a way for the roads to come in and leave, and I do need some kind of a building here, a reason for the roads to travel through. You'll see that there's a big gray parking lot-ish area, and we're going to turn that into some kind of a structure. Probably an industry, the more I really kind of ponder this, but something that makes the railroad just pop. Other than that, I am going to start working on just improving the overall look of the layout, overall look of the hills and the walls and the cliffs and things of that nature. And a lot of that's going to be covered on that next layout update video. Expect that in about 2 to 3 weeks. The other thing that we're going to cover here is modifications to these trains, modifications to the cars. One thing that I've not documented well is that I've been putting KD couplers on many of these train cars. We do have some older Lifelike and some Tyco cars and things like that, which make modifications much more difficult. But I have been trying to, where I can, put KD couplers on everything, and things that don't have metal wheels are quickly getting upgraded to metal wheels. In fact, I've had some broken trucks, and I've been upgrading some of those to actually sprung trucks. I am loving sprung trucks. So one of the major modifications I have coming soon is I say we're finishing up, but we're going to start really doing some of the major detail modifications to that F7B you see here. And yes, I am running an F7A and F7B with my GTEL. The main reason that I'm doing that is because towards the end of the life cycle of the second generation and first generation, they were running S-Series B and A units in order to keep up with the growing demands of the railroad. And so, number one, I love the way it looks. I think it just looks spectacular. But number two, it's actually prototypical. They actually did this back in the day. Now, unfortunately, my era doesn't really make sense for these, but we'll get into that discussion here in a moment when we talk about this major addition that I just made that I'm really excited for. But coming up real soon, we're going to be updating that B unit, updating even the A unit, and we're going to talk about paint schemes because I have some pretty interesting ideas, and I'm going to need your help making some decisions here. But as I said, I made a major acquisition here, and I'm really excited for it. So let's check out the unboxing of this brand new addition to the train room. All right, so I'm going to change angles up on you guys a little bit here. And I'm going to take out, there's a tube, it looks like, something. I think it's a tube down in here. Oops. No. There we go. Yeah. A tube. So I'm just going to make a couple of cuts here. I want to be really careful because there's something really special about this. This is basically like twofold of I never thought I'd come into ownership. And some people are going to look at the, going to be a bit silly to some people, but it's a bit weird just for me from my history, and I'll explain when we get in here. Come on. Open up. So, this is getting really close. I think this is the top. I really don't know. Once again, I want to be delicate with this. I don't want to get too crazy. It's just... If you must know, this thing is, you can see how badly... Well, it's not showing up here, but it is. This particular blade is in terrible shape. I've been doing a lot of work with some models. I've been building a few. Well, you can even see it here. I've been building a few train models with it, so it is not a sharp X-Acto. My sharp X-Acto's over there. I wouldn't really do this with a sharp X-Acto. And I just don't know where my scissors are at the moment. I was using them for another project. All right. Yep, I was right. This is the right side up. So this is extremely well packaged. Now, this is secondhand. This is not a store-bought item. So this is got some wear and tear, and it's going to require a bit of explanation because I'm not 100% certain how I'm going to address some of that particular situation there. Oh, wow, he's giving me a piece of... Oh, wow. Thank you, sir. All right. Set that over there. Now, first thing you will note, this is metal. This is an all brass model. This is not plastic. This is not an Atherin, in fact. I don't know if there should be a name here on the bottom. This was made by Balboa, and it is an all, if you can hear that, all brass model. Now, as stated, this is a brass train, and I was never one I thought would be collecting brass trains, but this was kind of a right place, right time first acquisition. And yes, my GTEL is not a brass train. It is an Atherin model, an Atherin ready-to-run model. It is plastic body, and that one was just right place, right time. And this was also right place, right time. I've been looking for a tender for that model for a long time. Unfortunately, mine, part of the reason it was so inexpensive is because it was acquired without the tender. On eBay, someone actually just recently dropped an Atherin X61 tender, and I was looking at that, and then it just got swept up from underneath me. In fact, the hilarious part is after acquiring this one, another one of those just came up for sale. But on first glance, I was actually extremely happy with this. In fact, I still am. I love this thing to pieces. You'll notice that in the main body of this, on the right-hand side here, there's a bit of a ding, a bit of a dent in the tank portion, and I'm going to leave that. If anything, if we do wind up weathering this, I'm going to use that as a weathered spot because, you know, once again, when you see train cars on the railroad, they're never perfect. They simply are not perfect, and weathering these and a lot of the details and the patina and things like that are what really make these railroad cars that we modify so interesting. You never see a train on the rails that's in perfect condition. The railing on the right-hand side, I'm sorry, the left-hand side, is pretty badly damaged. That railing, I've tried to put it in place. It's whatever happened, there was a lot of tension on it or something, and it worked. And this is not anything having to do with shipment or anything like that. I want to emphasize that too. The seller, as you'll notice, packed this exceptionally well. And I knew about all this getting the model. This is partly the reason that having, you know, a brass tender was so inexpensive in comparison to what they normally cost. This is going to be really simple to fix. But before I actually get into the repairs, it brings me to an interesting point, and I'm going to need your help making a decision here. So, when it comes to doing these modifications, I've got three potential camps, three potential ideas to undertake here. Now, I do have the F7 units that we're going to paint up at some point as well, and that doesn't necessarily mean that this has to change. Prototypically, these GTELs were never sold off of Union Pacific lines. They ran Union Pacific, and they were scrapped by Union Pacific, or they were preserved by Union Pacific. This was, or someone that Union Pacific donated it to. They were never run on short lines, and for good reason. I mean, they're massive locomotives. It would cost more to transport this to a short line industry or short line railroad and it would probably cost more for them to run because they were big, massive, heavy, thirsty engines. But I basically have three camps of thought here. So basically this brings me to three potential ideas. Number one, I keep the Georgia Northeastern name, which doesn't fit the timeline, but does fit the area, not the era, and just repaint everything. And that was one of my initial thoughts. And since it is my fantasy railroad, my fantasy city and all that, it would still kind of work, dispel a little, take a little, let's call it creative license with it. But, I'm definitely not opposed to that. Still doing that, I think it would be a lot of fun. But option number two, I am going to put a railroad museum somewhere out here. We've done a lot of railroad museum trips, And it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for a railroad museum to have one of these trains still operating it, and a lot of the other trains that I want to get that really simply do not fit here, we could then run under their original road names or new road names or whatever on the track, and it would still just basically run passenger service or light freight service or whatever, just fun runs out of the museum. And that would just basically make sure that I can still run the trains, but we don't necessarily have to do some major repainting or any repainting we don't want to do. Case in point, if I don't have to repaint this, I kind of don't want to. Number 3, and what I'm leaning really heavily towards, the Southern line that runs where Georgia Northeastern does had a specific name when it was running, and I actually really like that nickname that it got, and I could make that its own, or something similar, its own unique road name. Basically have our own short line that picked up a lot of these trains on the cheap. Remember, in the 1960s, a lot of these companies were getting rid of their older locomotives, steam locomotives, things like that, and were just scrapping them. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to do any one of these things. And that all kind of brings me back to an interesting point. So I'm going to come up with a way to make this final decision, but sound off in the comments. Let me know what you guys think here. We will come up with a really interesting way to determine which way I'm going to go with that. And it could be a combination of 2 or even all 3. You know, it's just really, there's no telling. So for now, that's going to be this update. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments as well. Hit that old subscribe button and thumbs up button if you guys did enjoy this video. And remember, growing old might be inevitable, and growing up might be optional, but playing trains is mandatory.